The reality is having children has a prophetic kind of note to it. It automatically orients us to the future. These babies, babies give us hope. Bring on the babies. That being said, once you choose to have kids, dude, God takes the whole business of parenting very seriously. In fact, Jesus says a scary thing in Matthew 18 when he's talking about this. He said, if anyone causes one of these little kids who believe in me to sin, it would be better for you to have this millstone hung around your neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. In other words, you're not going to have a good day. It's just not a good thing to do, right? Kids matter to God. That's what he's saying. There's evidence even that our attitude towards our children ultimately sort of impacts whether or not we fulfill God's destiny for our lives. This isn't a side issue with God. This is really dear to his heart. And this is a text in Genesis where God's talking about why he chose Abraham. Why that guy? Why did he pick him out of the ancient world, out of the pagan world? And it says that God says, I've chosen Abraham. Let me tell you why. Because I know he will direct his kids. He'll direct his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. What if part of how we are to make our mark in the world has to do with how we pour and invest ourselves in our kids? What if God's not just interested in preaching moments like this, or ministry moments, or mission moments? What if God really cares? He loves those things, but what if he really cares about what happens in our homes with our kids? God wants us as parents to direct our children. Great verse in Deuteronomy 6. This is where the Shema Yisrael prayer comes from. It's the prayer that they open their prayer services with in the Jewish faith. He says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." And then he goes on, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. These commandments that I give to you are to be upon your hearts." And watch how he immediately transitions. Once he deals with the person, he says, impress these things on your kids. Once you've tasted the life of God, once you know that God is involved with you, turn to your children. Impress these things. Talk about it. Talk about these things when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, and when you lie down, and when you get up. In other words, in the context of the ordinary, everyday world life. Tie them as symbols on your hands. Bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses. Be into this big time. All right, that's what he's saying. The idea of directing our children into a vital and real relationship with God is critical to the divine parenting mandate. God really wants us to see, as Christ followers, that our kids are not liabilities, that our kids are not problems, that they are not just expenses, but that in a real way they're part of our mission. They're part of our ministry. They're worth our time, worth investment. Parents have an amazing impact on children, for good and for ill. Many don't realize that. They're too busy to think about it. Many think of raising children as more of an imposition than really a mission. Listen to this horrible story. Brooke Adams kept a diary from his boyhood. One special day, when he was 8 years old, he wrote in his diary, "When fishing with my dad, the most glorious day of my life." Throughout the next 40 years of his life, he kept a diary. And he never forgot that day when he went fishing with his dad. And throughout the diary, he makes repeated references, commenting on the influence that one day had had on his life. See, Brooke's father was an important man. He was Charles Francis Adams, the U.S. ambassador to Great Britain under the Lincoln administration. He wasn't home a lot. Interestingly, he too, Charles Francis Adams, made a note in his diary about that fishing trip. This is what he wrote. "When fishing with my son, a day wasted." Kids matter.